battle, boy, you're paranoid. Trust in the Most High, forget the noise. Be serious, don't be so ignorant. Knowledge is power, the force is intelligent. Jesus coming soon, earthquake and shake.
Hey guys, and welcome to Dark Arts podcast, which is where we help you guys navigate the dating world, helping you avoid the pitfalls of manipulation, control, and influence. So if you're tired of being played, then this is a podcast for you. But today we have a special one for you. Yes, we're giving you a Valentine's special. Valentine's Day is a special day where men get to spend the money that they don't have on you. Okay, now I'm playing. But we wanted to talk about a few things concerning love. I know usually you get to see us talk about self-awareness. Oh, we'll weave that in somehow, some way. But we're going to talk about some subjects. Number one, we're going to talk about how we feel about Valentine's Day. And number two, we're going to talk about age gaps in relationships. Can you do them? And how do you feel about them? But I'm not going to do it alone. I'm joined by the wonderful co-host, Naomi. Naomi, how you doing today, baby?
Fantastic. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good. Doom, doom, doom. Okay, sorry.
Let's
I can hear
dive in.
myself.
Excited to talk about both, particularly the age gap one, because that video you showed me was.
Listen, the age gap thing is wild. Can't lie to you. I mean, I think there was a video that went viral. I think a few weeks ago, actually, talking about the age gap. There was a black girl, a black guy, very handsome kind of gentleman who was probably like maybe 10, almost 15 years older than the girl, and that's when I first kind of seen it. But this one that we're about to watch, yeah, this one is, you know, when the Wayne brothers make that joke about your mom is so old. This is that one. This is this one. You know what I mean? With all respect, this is this one.
You saw me coming because I was going to say we're not going to do that about women's bodies, but okay, continue.
Just saying. It was the Wayne's brothers who started it, not me. Just saying. All right. Let's get into it. No one waste time. Play a little bit of clip. We'll deal with the age gap first, and then we'll talk about Valentine's Day and how we feel about it. All right. Let's go.
But she's really the life of the party.
When people be saying I'm a gold digger, I never argue with them because they don't know my personal life.
It's getting spicy in the shade room.
He wants it every single day, every night.
These couples are going viral, mostly on TikTok, for dipping it with partners twice their age. How they're locking them down, making it work. But is the love real? I'm Justin Carter. This is TSR Investigates. They've been called sugar babies, sugar mamas, sugar daddies, cougars. The stigma of either dating older or younger is always going to be there. From Cher and Alexander Edwards' 40-year age gap to Eddie Murphy and Paige Butcher's 18-year gap. But there's this newfound confidence for couples, especially on TikTok. They're just putting it all out there for social media to see. And we wanted to know why. With 3 million followers on TikTok,
Oop, got your grandma.
People are eating up Cheryl and Karan McCain.
I'm 62.
And I'm 25.
37-year age gap.
They met when he was just 15 years old. Cheryl's adult son was the owner of a Dairy Queen at the time in Rome, Georgia. Karan was just an employee.
It was pretty much accident and God.
But they really became friends 8 years later when Karan started helping Cheryl with her TikTok content.
I told her, I was like, I have feelings for you. I'm willing to take a risk if you are. And she was like, yeah. And that really, like, that's basically where the point of the relationship started.
I just thought we were friends. People were saying, look at how he stares at her in the videos. Look at that. And I looked and I was like, oh my God, no.
So how did you know he was the one?
He makes me feel like no other. And like, he's my protector. I never even thought I would marry him. And you know, it is the best decision I ever made in my life.
They've been married now for a year, but not without hurdles, fielding hateful comments on social media, disapproval from their family, and speculation about Karan's sexuality.
They say he's gay.
I'm trying not to laugh.
Doesn't get better the second time round. What's your initial thoughts, Naomi, to this?
So I'm trying to be rational. My immediate reaction is like, is this a joke? Like somewhere along the line, I'm hearing he was 15 when they first started interacting. It's giving grooming. It's giving like blink twice if you're scared. Like what's going on kind of vibes. But then in the same breath, I don't doubt that they don't have some sort of perhaps chemistry or attraction, which is not for me to dictate. And I do think you can grow to love people, but I don't know. It's just giving like mum and son attraction. I don't know how they ended up exploring like a romantic relationship. It's a bit scary, to be honest. 37 years, that's a big gap. Big gap. What do you think?
I think there's a huge gap personally, and 37 years is a long time. But 37 years wouldn't be a problem. But he started knowing her when he was 15. I think if this was the other way around, we'd all be crying out grooming. Number one, but again, number two, I think he's only 25 now, and it's like you want a 62-year-old. Like at 25, you want a 62-year-old, sir. And I guess because we normally see it the other way around with women, oftentimes dating a man that's much more older, it's a bit more weirder to see it the other way around with such a large age gap. I think also that the more shock factor in this situation, it's more to do with us. Oh, sorry, more to do with me even. I think her look is also like when you're looking at it, like, so what did you see? Because like I ain't gonna lie to you, looks like old girl about to kill, and that's just how she looks personally. So I'm thinking in my head, I'm thinking to myself, such as human beings, we look for vitality. I'm wondering, what did you see that made you feel like, you know what, you found her attractive? Um, I'm thinking about myself at 15. Did I find somebody who is, 52 attractive? I, I mean, if they look good, maybe I would have thought about it. But I don't know what's going on there personally. It's a bit scary. But like you said, I can't judge their chemistry. I can't judge. I can't judge their relationship per se. But I think my one concern is the age gap. It's concerning for me.
Definitely. I mean, I agree that when I look at her, I can't necessarily see what he sees. But I always say, well, they say even that beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. But I think the reason why I brought up the mother and son dynamic is because I question. I don't want to make it psychological, but it's like I want to know about his background and his experience with his mother, and perhaps it's more so that he's drawn to the fact that when they were first working together, I believe he was an employee in her son's shop. She was nurturing, and that's maybe what he gravitated towards. And with time, and I think in the video it also goes on to say that he lost his virginity to her. So I don't know, like you said, the whole grooming thing is, I'm seeing underlying kind of like topics surrounding parenting and what really lies beneath the attraction on his side. On her side, I don't know, child. Like, I don't know. She's an older woman, a young guy who's shown interest. He doesn't immediately scream like hyper masculine, but he does seem quite assertive. So I think she's also been kind of drawn to that person who's being very direct and assertive to want her. And obviously, because she's older, she might not be accustomed to like getting that kind of attention. So she's still playing into her femininity. I don't know. It's very, it needs a lot of peeling, that situation, in my opinion. But if they're happy, they're happy. I think he's 25 now, so he's old enough to make his own decisions. I think for me, when it comes to age gaps, it's more so about the age at which you start an interaction versus the number itself. I think at 25, you can start to make some of these decisions, even as women, and start thinking about how much older somebody can be when you're dating them. But I am quite concerned that they started their interaction at age 15, so he didn't have that liberty to like explore what his likes and dislikes are.
Yeah, I think in this instance, you're actually right. Again, I don't want to, like I said, because I don't know all the details. We don't know all the details. I don't want to jump down the train of necessary grooming, but because obviously that's the little bit of information we've heard, that's what my ends are ringing to. Because he started at 15, knowing him in your son's shop. It's giving very much Jada Pinkett with August Alsina. And then we don't know. I don't know if they said actually when the relationship started. It just kind of said 15, then kind of knowing each other, etc. I don't know when the relationship actually started. Maybe they put it on TikTok. I don't know. But I think you're right. When you get to a certain age, you can make that decision for yourself. It's up to you whether you want it or not. But in this case, we do without more information, we'd have to look at it from the point of view what they've given. He might not have had much chance of being able to make a decision, because if someone's been in your life that long, and like you said, having that mother dynamic, maybe he's got mother issues. Maybe that's the reason why he looked for that kind of energy, and that energy is reassuring. And sometimes we can confuse, somebody else's energy as wanting to be in a relationship because of the wounds that have not healed. Someone's covering the wounds, but actually you haven't dealt with the wounds. It's just being covered. And you can end up in a relationship from an unhealed perspective. That's not necessarily where you should end up. Sometimes we end up in relationships just because our unhealed self, our inner child is screaming for that. But actually, when you get to a more healed place, that person isn't necessarily who you actually want to be in a relationship with. How do you feel about that?
Agreed. That makes absolute sense. I think even outside of this umbrella topic of being in a situation where there's an age gap, even when you are dating people who are within your age bracket, you see these dynamics play out where one person plays more the parent role. Oftentimes you hear particularly men, feeling like women are mothering them in situations. Some people are drawn to that. Some people kind of like resist that because they don't want to repeat experience where they feel like they're being mothered, and vice versa. Some women are quite drawn to masculinity that sometimes mirrors the experience that they have with their fathers, where they want somebody to kind of dictate what they should or shouldn't be doing, and have kind of parameters about how they should show up in life. So I can definitely appreciate that when we're speaking specifically about dating people where there is a bigger age gap, that people are perhaps being drawn to energies that mirror more their parents rather than actual chemistry surrounding what they need as healed versions of themselves.
So just even touching on what you said then about the inner child, and the wounded, and also as well being drawn to that masculinity as well. Have you ever been drawn? If you were to look back, I guess it's a self-awareness piece. But have you ever been drawn to someone and realized actually maybe that's more of the wounded inner child that's being drawn to that person rather than actually being the healed part of you?
That's a very good question. I think it's taken me a very long time to have an objective view of what my needs are or what my wants are in a man. My father was quite absent in my childhood, so I didn't even have the luxury of being able to compare what it would be like to have a man in the house, what it means to be treated in a certain capacity. So I think for me, I don't know that I was immediately being drawn to people who mirrored my dad, because he wasn't around for me to even be attracted to that kind of energy. But I can definitely appreciate that in his absence, I had a keenness or like a big appetite to have like masculine energy like in my company. I'm trying to think. I do think that my quote unquote daddy issues played a part in like my selection of men. But I think with time you kind of start to understand, okay, this is my inner child looking for somebody to kind of like give me that energy, versus this is Naomi who wants a partner who is romantic, who is assertive but still hears her, and vice versa. So I'm still trying to figure out and separate the two, but for the most part, I didn't have the luxury of having my dad around to create a frame of like what to attract myself to or to be drawn to.
No, I definitely hear that as well. I think my look back at some of my women that I liked or even dated. I think definitely there is some maybe less of daddy issue or mommy issue, but more of a case of drawn to people that were emotionally unavailable, because I was unavailable, because I wasn't dealing with my own emotions. You know what I mean? So the parents had an effect, but not necessarily, I would say, necessarily quote unquote daddy issue. I was emotionally avoidant in that sense. And then I was drawn to people who either I had to save them because I wanted to be a hero and I wanted to be seen as such, or I chose other people who were also emotionally avoidant, because I didn't want to be having them so close and stick too close to me. You know what I mean? So I found myself in those two departments. But I think the hero part was a big thing, because I think I realized, I remember even having, when you have it, oh, well, you weren't because you're not a guy, but that's a guy. You have those dreams that you save a girl. I used to, when I was younger, I remember having these dreams, and I used to even force the dreams to try and happen, where you save a girl. You know what I mean? You get shot because you get in front of a car. You save this girl in the most dramatic way. Yeah, I wanted to be a hero. I swear down. You'd save this girl in the most dramatic way, and then she's forever grateful for like you doing this great act. Because I really had a savior complex. I really did when I was younger, wanting to save, a girl, and she'll love me. And that's because of what I felt was not even maybe, but knowing that I didn't necessarily have the love that I wanted it in the way that I needed it as a young kid. Do you know what I mean? Right. So not being serviced emotionally as a young kid then leads you to some level, at least led me to a space where I wanted to be that protector, that savior for a girl, because that's what I probably wanted when I was a younger kid. You know what I mean? In the interaction. So it led me to women that, broken, hurt. There's some major trauma there. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to solve the trauma. I mean, in some cases, it's still part of my job today. So, that's my job. But it's my job, not necessarily my relationship, that I should be involved in this aspect in. But I did see how it did affect me in dating. That's why I'm on a bench right now and healing.
The hero complex is very interesting to hear, because I think even now, when I'm navigating like the dating scene, I still sense that a lot of men do want to feel like they are coming to save the day, and it perhaps seems a bit more difficult where women are starting to be more embracive of like having their own and being a bit more independent. So it leaves men feeling like they don't really have too much of a role in a woman's life. So it's quite interesting to hear you speak about, kind of like relating it back to your childhood, and the absence of certain experiences made you want to create that dream where you are ultimately like in control and you are being appreciated and you're being idolized and glorified. That's quite interesting. When you were speaking, I was thinking a lot about the parent that was most present in my childhood, who was my mother. And I can definitely see how in my past dating relationships, I was looking for someone who I knew, like it was quite normal for being in a situation where I knew somebody cared for me, but they didn't show it or I didn't feel it, but I just knew that they did. Which meant I was sticking around in situations that didn't ultimately feel compassionate, loving, and caring, but just by way of hearing things like words of affirmation, I had to believe that that was it, because that was what I was accustomed to as a child. So it's quite interesting how these childhood experiences play out when you're dating. I wanted to ask you if you see yourself dating a woman who is much older than you.
No. And that's maybe because age is a number, but it certainly is important because of oftentimes the experience that one has. It also creates power dynamics within the relationship as well. And of course, it depends on the woman, but majority of the time it creates a power dynamic. And I don't feel like that would be the best dynamic for me to be in per se. And I don't know. I guess obviously then tradition, normally men date younger women. And I guess that relates back to, if we were to be honest, that relates back to vitality, but also as well power dynamics. You know what I mean? You date someone younger, they tend to look at you differently than someone the same age. Not always, but just saying, traditionally what happens is when someone's young, like if I look at an older woman, you look at her in a certain way. If a woman who's younger looks at a man that's older in a certain way, right? And you often give them a different level of room and respect just because they're slightly older or you think they're wiser, etc., etc. So for me personally, dating older, it's not really my kind of thing. I'm not counting it out 100%, but it's not necessarily my thing. Now, maybe if it's a year older or something, maybe I could do it. But the majority of the time, I meet women that are roughly the same age as me or like slightly younger as well. So I don't know. No, me dating older, 62. Yeah, couldn't be me. Couldn't be me. What about you? Well, could you date someone younger?
Oh, I don't think so because I mean, in foresight, I can visualize myself being at an age where I'm looking for someone who isn't going to be immediately a leader. So I get to call the shots more. It's kind of like my rules create the parameter of the relationship, and somebody is willing to facilitate that for me. And I think somebody who's younger is more likely to kind of like bend the rules in terms of traditional relationships. But ultimately, for me, it is very important to have that power dynamic where I have a leader, someone that I look up to, someone that I seek kind of like counsel from. And I think that would probably play out best in a situation where the man is older. But I do find it interesting that no matter when we speak about women who date older men, they are titled as like oftentimes like sugar babies or gold diggers. And then if a woman is older and dates somebody who is younger, they labeled as cougars. It's like the women are always at the center of like the labeling. It never is about the man and or the men who are younger, like going for women who are older, or the men who are going for younger women. I do find that quite interesting in terms of topic wise. I don't know if you have any thoughts about that.
You know what? It's actually when you said it, I didn't realize, but until you said it, that yes, it is true that the women are labeled something. So cougar or gold digger usually are the two titles, depending on the type of relationship the person's choosing. You're right. I'm trying to rack my brain to see what we normally call the men. If they're younger, what do we call them? If they're older, what do we call them? We don't necessarily have a name for them. So you're actually right. I mean, I guess that goes back to quote unquote the big P, the patriarchy, and goes back to men defining women and labeling women as, I guess, quote unquote, men centralized society. So, when things are centered on men and men have power, they tend to label the opposite gender accordingly to how they feel. So I guess, yeah, I didn't think about it until you said it. That's quite interesting. And oftentimes those labels do come with a bit of shame, also. So it's not like the labels are coming and saying, okay, well, that's it. And, glory. It's more of a case of normally we label that person and there's some shame attached to it. Almost like as if, hey, don't become like these people. You know what I mean? Like, stay away. So yes, I definitely hear that. That's eye opening. I didn't think of that. Sugar baby, sugar mama, I mean, we do have sugar daddy. I think I think now women are starting to, as women are gaining more foothold in society, we are starting to see more of the labels. But again, the negative aspect of the label isn't the same. So if someone calls someone a sugar daddy, it's like, well, he winning. Because like he's the sugar daddy and he spent a bit of cash, but he's got a young babe on his arm, you know. So yeah, that's I didn't think of it that way. Yeah. Good thoughts.
Thank you. But in saying that, I'm not kind of like, I don't resist the idea of dating somebody who's older. Obviously the age gap for me, I don't think I could date anybody that's like over 10 years older than me. For me, it's given old, but I can definitely appreciate, and I think it's also wise for women to date up. When we're talking about provisions, protection and stability, I think most men could probably agree that by the time you're reaching like the 30s, the 35s, even the 40s, that's when you're in spaces where you've kind of lived out your quote unquote fantasies. You've kind of like gone through certain phases of life in terms of your expression. You're making more stable income. You're more in a space where you're less focused perhaps in your career, and you are now looking to kind of like spend time with someone, have company, explore and so forth. And I think for women, I actually think women should not date before the age of 25, because there is a lot of learning that you need to do between the ages of like 16 to 25 in terms of adopting expressions that really mirror your true desires, understanding yourself and so forth. And when women date at an age lower than 25, I tend to find that you're more likely to be conditioned, hence why men tend to want to date women who are 25 and younger, because that's an age where you can kind of like tailor how they show up and so forth. But ultimately, dating up for women, I think, is really wise. And it also makes sense as to why men like to date younger women, because, you know, they're still young, fresh and fit, however you guys label it.
Since we're talking about age, how do you feel about, let's say, a guy saying, like you said, a woman is quote unquote more impressionable at the age of that kind of age? Like if a guy says, I date women at that age because they're more impressionable, does that ring alarm bells, or do you understand? Like, what's your kind of view? Because I remember I watched a video and the guy was like, he dates younger women because obviously they're more impressionable, and it went viral. And people were like, because I think he said the words train. That was also why as well. He says it, you train, they're easily more trainable at that age. So I can understand why it turned into a little beef. But what's your kind of viewpoint on that aspect? Someone dating someone younger because they are quote unquote trainable, more malleable, and willing to listen. Is that reality? Is that fair to say?
Language is very important when you are saying these things. I think language is very telling of someone's mentality. Some people are looking for space to manipulate. They're looking for space to condition and train, and I think that raises alarms for me. I can appreciate that a woman who is perhaps over 25 or even in her early 30s is a more seasoned woman. She has clearer and more fixed boundaries. She's a bit more intentional about the things that she wants, which gives little space perhaps for her partner to kind of like intercede. And, you know, I believe that men have a dream or a frame and they present it to women, and it's like, okay, I want you to be a part of this journey. And perhaps when a woman is much older, she has her own dream and her own frame, and there might be less wiggle room in terms of how to compromise and bring that together, arguably. So I can appreciate that men would want somebody who is younger and she's, you know, perhaps, I use this term loosely, but a bit naive about what her future looks like, about what she wants to do. You know, she's not pressed for time biologically. She's not thinking about kids tomorrow. You know, that gives men a bit more space to like get themselves together. Like I said, most men between the ages of 30 and 40 are only just stabilizing themselves. They're not really in positions to immediately start thinking about, you know, buying homes and having children. They want time to kind of like just, you know, make sense and get their feet on the ground. When you meet a woman who's 30, she's looking at her biological clock like, okay, we getting married tomorrow or not? So it makes sense when men say things like, I like to date younger. However, I think you have to be careful and have an objective view of your mentality. Are you saying that because you want somebody who's going to jump when you say jump, or are you saying that because in terms of where you are in life, you're looking for somebody who can kind of like complement your timeline? You're nodding away. What do you think?
No, I agree, and I think certain language is problematic. I think certain people are problematic in general. They are uh, wanting considerable power in a relationship that goes beyond its normal means and measures. I definitely feel like, of course, dating someone maybe slightly younger will create some dynamic of power. Oftentimes because of the respect level that happens because someone's slightly older. But you're right. I think certain way. I was trying to find a video that the guy actually said it, and it was the language that he used. He got to a point where he said, train her, and it was instantly going to be a problem. You know what I mean? Like if I get with someone younger, it's not necessarily I want to train them. Um, of course, there is going to be what we call, as for us as men, there may be less resistance to the leadership, but it's not necessarily you want to train her, because I think if we get to that space, you gotta be very, very careful, right? When we're thinking we can mold somebody, you're gonna realize that very quickly you start creating a Dr. Frankenstein, and that then ends up being the person that kills you. So it's like you gotta be very, very careful with that whole mold and stuff. We're in a new generation where people actually have the power to choose not to be with you. Okay, so you can't do what you were doing in the 1950s and the 1900s. Where I think we're in a better place in terms of a better equilibrium. We're not there yet, but we're in a better equilibrium when it comes to power in a relationship. And I know a lot of guys don't necessarily like that. Personally, I actually think it's better. I think it's better because I think we can have a more healthier relationship, right? And I say this because in a relationship, what we have to be working on is working on solving the equation, which is constantly, how do I service you? How do I best service you? And of course, this is a very difficult question, because as the course of time goes, our needs change, and we are ever evolving as time goes on. But I think when you have relationships which had power dynamics where someone can't leave the relationship, you aren't really in a relationship. Like, you're in a bondage. And if you can't understand that as a man, I think it's because you're so used to having power in a dynamic that it's now scary when you realize you don't have as much power in a situation. But then that should wake you up. That should make you realize that you have to work at the relationship that you're in. You have to choose better, you have to vet better, and you have to maintain better, which means actually put an F in the relationship. You can't stay in the role of, I'm just making money and that's my job done. You actually have to input in other areas. And I think a lot of us are suffering as men when we have to look at situations where you have to input more than that, because a lot of us don't realize how to put in more than that, because all the signal from our media representation, even family, immediate family and generations past, is I take care of mines. And that's lovely, but there are other aspects you have to feed into. And I think this is the reason why being a Christian is really helpful, because it does open your eyes to the fact that there's more than just the financial provision that's needed. You have to actually feed in those other areas, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, sexually, as well as the financial. How do you feed your family in those areas as well? Because that's what the leadership also entails. You can't get away with it now with just feeding somebody financially. It's no longer good enough. People can feed themselves financially. So what else can you do? Which is probably the scariest part,
You literally hit the nail on the head. I always speak about bare minimums that are kind of lost these days in the way we're being socialized, and I don't want to ever take away the gravity of, for example, for a woman, a bare minimum to me is like being domesticated. I don't want to take away the gravity and how hard or how much effort is required to be domesticated and nurture within a home. Likewise, I would never want to take away the gravity of being a provider for your household, but fundamentally those are things that are givens. Like in a relationship, both people have to be able to serve in those areas. But outside of that, in order to maintain a relationship, it has to be more than cooking and cleaning and making money for the household. Those things aren't going to be the things that just keep you guys together. So the way you said it was actually really, really well articulated. And I also think that we are in an age where I haven't seen this video where this person spoke about training, and I do think it is very important to think about why you say things the way you say them. But we are in an age where people are very sensitive. They hear a word and they start to run away from it. I think the idea of training people sounds bad if the psychology behind it is in a negative or dark space. However, the reality is that when you are in relationships, you are training each other with how to coexist. You're both coming from different worlds and trying to create a life together. You both have different ways of showing up. You have different ways of being, different likes and dislikes, and ultimately without pressuring people, you're teaching them how you would like to be treated, and they teach you the very same thing. I think what becomes a bit risky is when you are in a dynamic where you are almost forcefully forcing someone to be a certain way, and that's when you start to have foundations of bitterness start kind of like surfacing and being uprooted, and people start kind of clashing more because you wake up one day and you realize that, you know what, this is not actually who I am. Like, I actually have an opinion, and for so long I haven't been able to voice it, or I actually used to enjoy having a bit of my own life, and now I just kind of do what my wife says. So it's like you have to be able to kind of like explore those gray areas and make sure that you are finding the balance between learning someone and not being stolen of your own kind of core identity.
I definitely hear that. All right, let's since we're talking about that, let's shift it then to Valentine's Day. I got a clip for us that we can watch and get your thoughts on on Valentine is coming. Where's your boyfriend? All right, let's bring this up here. Fantastic. Let's go.
For me personally, I don't really celebrate that,
Oh, you don't?
Nah. Why?
Fam, you know it's based on pagan rituals, innit?
Oh, is it?
Yeah, bruv, go and check, bruv. It starts from something called Lupercalia. Go and do your goggles, bruv. Yeah, man. As a Christian, even, you shouldn't even really be celebrating it, you know? So, but yeah. On Judgment Day, you tell God whether the roses were worth it, too. Listen, my thing is, why celebrate on one day when I show you love every other day? Like, you know what I mean? Every day of the year, I show you love. You ain't got no complaints. Why? What's the big deal with one day? Like, I don't get it. Babe, stop getting sucked into the matrix. Big man thing, this is capitalism at its finest, man. Like, deep it. How does me buying expensive gifts and buying you roses now mean to you that I love you? How? That's not even your love language. You like words of affirmation, so how does it make sense? Can't lie, I just don't see the point in it.
You don't see the point of Valentine's Day? But you can spend money getting drunk every weekend.
Yeah, it's with the man them. And I can't lie, I don't drink every time. Sometimes I just drink mixer. So
whatever.
Yeah, I don't mind celebrating, but like, how much is that really gonna cost? Like $250 on a meal though. I don't know. But my guy does like vouchers. Like we can go for afternoon tea or something. If that can work. But the roses are gonna die in a few days as well. Like I don't think that's the most financially smart thing to do right now, you know? Cost of living and that. Can't lie. It's not that I don't want to celebrate with you, my darling. But what if I don't have the facilities to do all you want me to do? You know, because even in the Bible it says for richer for poorer, you know?
We're not married though.
It's not true, we're not married. If you can't accept me for poorer now, then we're never gonna get married then.
It's
actually.
so dramatic.
Who even knows? Maybe this is a revelation. Maybe God is telling me you're not the one for me.
Oh my God.
That's it. God works in mysterious ways, truly. You know what? I never just really saw my parents celebrate it growing up, so that's why it don't really make sense to me, really.
Screaming. Okay, so when do you see your mum deep throat your dad and eat out his bum? Because you seem to love that one.
Wait, Abigail,
I'm just
are
asking.
you mad? Can't lie, for me personally, I don't really celebrate that, you know.
Ooh, that last part, yeah, definitely will shock you. Don't let your kids watch that. Valentine is coming. Where's your boyfriend? Yeah, listen. You know, it's interesting. I think personally, I don't know if mine's on the list. Maybe it is the emotionally immature one. I personally don't really care about the day, personally, but I'll do it if you want to do it. But I really don't care. I really don't care about the day. Then again, I don't care about birthdays. So for me, I don't really care about that or Christmas. They don't really bother me too much. I'm not really that kind of person. But if that's what's important to you, hey, I'll do it. It's not a big deal. Do you know what I mean? But personally, me, doesn't really bother me. What's your thoughts?
I have mixed emotions about commercial holidays. It's like I don't care about them, but when the season comes, it's like you want to be a part of the mix. You don't want to feel left out. And I think there was one person that he I guess personified, the person that said like, I show you love all the days of our relationship. Why do I need to do extra on Valentine's Day? And I think a lot of people feel like, especially when you've been in a long-term relationship, there isn't always that space to like be very romantic. So it's like you can look forward to Valentine's Day when you have that one day that's a bit extra compared to most days. I mean, every day you tell me you love me, every day we eat dinner together, which is great. Like we have companionship, but you know, it's like my birthday. I just want to feel extra special. Like, yeah. Your face is like no.
No. I don't necessarily. I mean, I don't necessarily disagree. I always question myself. Why do I think it. You know, Valentine's Day exposes how I feel about vulnerability in this area, because I think it forces you to have to be romantic. Number one, it forces you, and I think many of us, you know, as we grow up as well, guys especially, you know, that whole cheesy love aspect of it, because that's what it gives you, that aspect of cheesy love, you know what I mean? When we talk about, you know, when you're young and you're doing the teddy bear and the card, we all did it. Okay, some of us did. I did it. I did the card. I did the teddy bear and the you know, all that kind of I love you mugs and all that kind of stuff. The personalized cards. Yeah, I did that in the beginning. And then you kind of grow out and you're like, yo, it's another day, bro. Like, it's not a big deal. And I sometimes try to search myself, what is the issue behind that day specifically for me? And I can feel it, but I haven't got it all the way in terms of the answer. But it's like it's another day is actually the answer, I guess, that I would choose. Like, it's another day. Like, I think it feels like you're being controlled to have to do something for your girl, and it feels like your girl is being summoned by something else to draw out of you something that, you know what, I don't want to give right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not even the money aspect. I don't even think, some people it is, but I think a lot of times it's not even the money aspect. It's that you have to, they're summoning your girl to draw something out of you to prove something in that day. Because if you don't do it, then you also are being shown that, you don't love your girl, you're not romantic, you don't care about your girl. So it's like you're being forced into something in that situation to prove your love. And I think for men especially, that it gets annoying sometimes, because it's like, I don't have to be controlled. I have to do this. So I haven't got a choice. Like, I have to do this. That's what you're basically telling me. And I think sometimes that can be an issue, but that could also be a biased view, because I don't like control. So, I'm sure there are other reasons as to why.
I mean, that makes sense when you are showing like a man's perspective to how you would feel. It's kind of like how Christmas is supposed to be about spending time with your family, but I think the center of that celebration is about the gifts, and people want to show what they have, and I got this and I got that, and this is how, rich my family is, or this is how much we care about each other because of what we've given each other. And I do think that women also feel slight pressure to kind of, especially in this day of social media, you want to be a part of the people posting. You don't want to be the person just clicking through people's posts, seeing what they got. You want to also show that, I got the roses, I got the gifts, and so forth. I don't know. I think the only perhaps advice or like counter argument I can have to what you said about feeling under pressure to spend, I think quality over quantity is a thing for women. Ultimately, we would love to be a part of the trends that get those big ass roses that are different colors and so forth, but ultimately just experience something that feels a bit abnormal to your day to day stands out. Also, women, I think men don't always understand that women really do have a very romanticized idea of what relationships should look and feel like, and Valentine's Day is that opportunity to live that out. It's like, oh my gosh, like that childlike, or what did you say earlier about, when you were younger, you would go out your way to do the whole teddy bears and the cups, and it's like, okay, this one day I get to really live out, the most romantic version of what it would look like to be in love with my partner. And the summoning and pressure part I can understand, but I think at core, women just want to feel really, really special on that day, and it's like, okay, I have an excuse to actually expect that from my partner. Whereas I have to be a bit more realistic in our day to day, and I can't assume that every day I'm going to have that over romanticized version of what love should look like. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. No, I do actually agree that, I think, I think the core issue here also as well is, like I said, I think a lot of us are not vulnerable, and it's forcing us to be vulnerable. You know what I mean? Because romanticism is a open display of love and care, and I think some of us are uncomfortable with the necessity of having to show that side. Like, a lot of us are not romantic. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, because we consider it to be either vulnerable or weak. Like, why am I having to, like, do the most and get creative about showing you that I love you? Like, come on, like, it's not necessary, kind of thing. But again, and of course, the women are also feeling that pressure too. And I think it's even more pressure now in the last maybe 20 or so years because of technology. We can see what everyone else is doing, and that has really boosted the commercial aspect of it, because it's like you said, if you go on Instagram and you start seeing everybody's posts, we're here, we're doing this, we're doing that, and then you look at your party and you're like, he ain't do nothing for me, he ain't even do nothing. And it's like, then that creates itself pressure within your own relationship based upon what someone else has done. Like, not even because that's what you really necessarily, quote unquote, what you really want, but because you've seen that outside, and now that's now impacting inside. And again, I think that also plays a part. But the reality is, listen, if I had £1 million, would I care? No. A lot of times this is a money issue. It's not it's a money issue. And that's why I said it feels forced, because it's a day that's enforced upon me, almost like paying my taxes. You're asking me to pay this thing, and you're asking for taxes on this day, because that's what you're really asking for. I know people might not see it that way, but I'm saying, like, if you look at it from a person who's financially stable, or has a lot of financial disposable income, not just money, disposable income that they can use. These arguments aren't an argument we make. You know what I mean? But when you talk to the average man who's making the average income, money is a big issue. And it's a big reason why a lot of decisions don't get taken. You know, and a lot of women will say, you know, it's about the thought that counts. Don't lie, because it ain't. It really ain't. For a lot of you, it's not. It's not the thought that counts, because the thought that he had ain't good enough for you. I'll be honest with you, the thought that he has is not good enough for you. So he gonna need to do something, and it will cost a bit of money. And I don't think that's a problem. I think again, this should be budgeted for throughout the course of the year, so that you're ahead of the game as a man, right? And again, this is again for us as men. Sometimes it feels like we're being taken advantage of this day, because this day is nothing to do with men. I'm so sorry. There are some women who will appreciate their man, but a lot of you are just taking. And a lot of men feel like they're being taken advantage of in that space. It's not Valentine's Day, it's Girls' Day. And that's the difference. So it's not about love, it's about you. Babe, what am I going to do for you? Are you going to take me here? Are you going to take me there? Are you going to do this for me? Are you going to propose this? Are you going to do that? It's not about Valentine's Day, it's about you. And that's where I think a lot of men find a resistance in that space. But like I said, if you're rich, you don't care if it's a girl's day or the guy's day, because financially, this ain't a problem for you. A lot of money solves a lot of issues, I promise you. It solves a lot. You stop caring about a lot of things. Hey, if I spend 200, 300 pounds a day, I ain't even mad at it. Let's go. What you want to do? I don't even care about me. You what you want to do, right? But when you don't have that aspect, you are going to think about, well, what am I getting out of this situation? I'm just going to do it for you. Hey, there's that aspect as well. So, yeah.
You touched on so many points. I'm going to start with, first of all, we need to outlearn self-gratification. Obviously, it is a day of love. You hit the nail on the head when you spoke about the fact that it's about love all round, loving your parents, loving your siblings, and all that. But it's centered about romantic relationships, which is quite interesting. I don't know the immediate history around Valentine's. I think it's supposed to be like St. Valentine's. There's a whole history around it. I don't know too much about it, but it is quite interesting to see how it's now just been centered around couples and so forth. You also spoke about it primarily being about women. I think men have a day, like it's the 14th of March, and it's I think like steak and blowjob day or something. I don't know if I'm just like appropriate to say that, but you guys are supposed to have your own day. And I think sometimes, especially in this day and age when I know women empowerment has become very radicalized and feminism is like a big thing and a whole movement now, but it does seem like where women are a bit more assertive or they're becoming more vocal about their wants and needs, and suddenly like, oh, well, men also want this. And I don't know why my neck rolled, but it's like, you guys could be as vocal. You guys have your days too, but it's not as commercialized. And if you're saying that we live in a man's world or with the P world or a patriarchy, it's like, how comes men aren't, making as much as an effort to commercialize events centered around men, but when women are kind of like embracing the fact that there's a day where they can take advantage of the fact that they can experience luxuries and so forth, it's like we are the problem again when we didn't even create this. Like it just so happened that it's a day and we're making the most of it. And I think the third thing that I'm going to add is that I personally have been receiving gifts or roses for about 5 years now, and I appreciate it. It's a great gesture, but I don't idolize it or glamorize it. For me personally, I do think that, even if a man has a lot of money, making gestures that are centered just around gifting it's like a cop-out, it's lazy. And even though you said that, most women won't appreciate and celebrate a man who, just has a thought or makes like a small gesture, I think being creative in how you show up is a big thing for women. Before Valentine's Day, we've been together, I don't know, 6 months, a year, or however long we've been together. I know who I'm with at this point, and I can always tell when somebody is making an extra effort or doing something that's outside of our norm, and that's what women can appreciate. I do see how, obviously, like we've spoken about social media, you are seeing celebrities or you are seeing the millionaires doing the extracurricular activities, but we live in a real world. So as much as I'd love to be able to compare my relationship to that of, I don't know, Jada Wader or like the Aries of the world, I know that this is who I'm with and he's doing something within his capacity. And I do think women need to be very careful about, idolizing relationships that are like the 1%, because you might be there sitting looking at your partner like, oh, he's not doing anything, there's better out there. The reality is, like, it's very unlikely for you to be experiencing, you know, romance in the same large amounts of money. But again, I think the main point for me is to highlight that men need to, in my opinion, should think about being more creative. Like, getting the roses is nice, but it's also quite lazy. Like, you can get me roses any day of the week. Do something a bit more creative. Like, I don't know, make me a meal, because 365 days in a year, I'm always cooking for you. There are different things that you can do to make your woman feel special ultimately. But money does, you know, add a little snazzle.
Money roses. Money roses. No, and I agree with you. I do actually agree with you in that sense. I think you know, having said that, you know, I was just racking my brain going through it, and you know, you're right, we're not as vocal about those days. But can you imagine if we said steaks and blowjobs? Could you imagine if we made that a mad day? I can guarantee you there'll be a lot of madness being pushed back. Oh man, that's all they ever want is sex. That's all they ever want. Da, da, da. But do you know what? Yes, that's what I want. I want just a one day where, you know what, we gonna get serviced. Okay, right? But if we did that, well, let me say this: we haven't done it. So maybe if we did that, let's see what would happen, right? I think we have an assumption of what could happen rather than actually what has happened. So let's try that and see. For the married couples, those of you who are Christians, you're not doing that. But you know, I think, again, I think it goes back to that point, as I was saying. That's why I said that Valentine's Day is not Valentine's Day. Like, it's not. It's Girls' Day, because again, we're talking about thoughts. We, as men, we have this running joke, right? Women will end up buying you socks and boxers. When we ask women for their creativity, women are just as bad as when it comes to creativity. Unless, like, that's your actual love language, gifts. Women are very bad at buying gifts. They'll be like boxes and briefs, socks. And I know some women will be like watching it, like, I've never done that. I've done so. You are one of the you good. But there's a lot of men who've received socks and boxes, okay, and a standard watch, the quote unquote normal stuff that women will end up buying for a man, right? And maybe a PS game or whatever, or Xbox game that he's always wanted, right? And so it's not Valentine's Day, really, in the way that we understand it to be about love. It's really, and that's why it becomes, going to one of his other points, commercial, because it's really about, how do I spend my time and my money on the woman? It's not reciprocated. You know what I mean? Like, when you see, I saw a post the other day, it was like, if a man knows that you like Valentine's Day, but you ain't, and he ain't do nothing for you, he don't care about you, don't love you, right? And I could understand where she was coming from, but I was like, but what are you doing for him then? Because it's Valentine's Day. It's not Girls' Day. It's Valentine's Day. And that's why I said it's been branded as Valentine's Day, but really what it actually is underneath the surface is spoil your girl day. And if that's the case, we have to rebrand it so it's not about love, because it's not. It's about us showing some appreciation to our women, and it's Women's Appreciation Day. That's what it should be. Women's Appreciation Day, right? Let's change it so it's not an open book, because it's not. It's Women's Appreciation Day. Because if you don't do anything for me, ain't nobody kicking up no storm. Ain't nobody going on Twitter and making threads about how their woman has never done a Valentine's Day for the last 14 years. You failed 14 years, 5 years, 2 years, whatever, for your woman. There's gonna be a thread on Twitter, okay, about how he don't like you, he don't love you, he don't care about you. Now, someone might say, but you men don't really care about it. And I would argue saying, it's not that we don't necessarily care about it, it's because we're not cared about. It's not about us. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's about you. So when we're involved in this conversation, we're never involved in a conversation where it's like, I want to spoil my man. Not saying that women don't do this, by the way. They do. I'm just saying, but a lot of times, a lot of people on a general perspective don't receive that. And then men further enhance that by going, we don't really care. You do. You have emotions. And the problem is, a lot of us men are not vulnerable, so we're not going to say anything. No, I'm cool. I'm good. Like, it don't mean nothing. It's Valentine's Day. But the reality is, you want to be showing some love. Maybe not on Valentine's Day, but you want to be showing some love. So maybe us as men need to do better in terms of rebranding what Valentine's Day is and giving some pushback. But if we do, we're going to be called sassy. Why do y'all niggas want what we want? Talk to me, Naomi.
Not you dropping the mic. I mean, I'm not mad at anything you said. I think women need to, if for those who are not open to hearing men be vocal about their wants and needs, I think it's definitely like there needs to be some pushback. And men should have spaces and be at liberty to vocalize that, you know, they want to be cared for, how they want to be cared for. And obviously, like, it goes without saying, like, when you're watching films, you're watching music videos, you're reading books, it is like, it's quite clear that women like to be spoiled. And it's like, you don't have to scratch your head too tough about what that looks like. Whereas for men, buying a gift for a man is so difficult if you have a man who's not vocal, if you have a man who kind of like sits in a frame where he's very nonchalant about things like birthdays, things like Christmas. It's like, okay, what does he like? I don't know. Pay for him and his friends to go to a shooting range or something. It's like you have to do a bit more pulling with men, and I think men could make that a bit easier by being vocal and a bit more expressive. But I could understand why men aren't, because, you know, you are likely to be called something along the lines of being a simp or being sassy. And I don't know, if anything, we just need to outlearn that. So what if me being vocal about the fact that I want some TLC for my girl means I'm sassy? Like, you're not having to sleep with me at the end of the day. Like, but I think when it comes to egos and so forth, you know, I as a woman can be okay with being labelled, because, you know, I can kind of just brush it off. Whereas with a man, it might knock you slightly more, and I don't really have an answer to how to deal with that. But ultimately, you should care less about what people are saying about and more about, you know, the dynamic you have in your relationship. If your woman respects you, if your woman isn't treating you less than because you're being vocal, then you don't really have anything to worry about. And I also want to add that even though I can appreciate what you're saying about Valentine's being just about women, I do think that do you know what? I'm not going to say that, because I was going to say that men also make it a point, or I make it a point even, to like make sure I text my mum or I buy her flowers. But I can see how I don't think to call my dad and say Happy Valentine's Day. So you're right. I think the branding around Valentine's Day perhaps needs a bit more revising. But in closing, men need to be more vocal about the fact that they have needs and wants, and give women the space to cater to them, because most women enjoy being nurturing. And when I speak about self-gratification, it's nice to see your man happy and enjoying. Like, your man might say he hates celebrating his birthday, but his face lights up when you buy him a birthday cake and you make something, or you do something special for him. So yeah, just be more vocal, really.
That's a fair point. That's a fair point. Yeah, that's a fair point. Can't lie on that. So, man, them, treat your girls, okay? As much as I'm saying all I'm saying, the system is still the system. You better do Valentine's Day if you want to stay in a relationship. That's what I'm saying. Yes, it's forced. You have to comply. But no, I appreciate, you know, honestly, yeah, I think it was a really good conversation on some really important topics there. So hopefully people have had a good chance to kind of interact with what we've been saying. Listen, if you agree or you disagree, comment down below. Maybe you have your own thoughts about Valentine's Day. You know, I know it's past now. It's been a day or two, you know, but you're not clear yet. Okay. Instagram is still full of those posts, and Twitter as well. Okay. All right. So you need to be careful how you tread on social media. If you're triggered by that day, just wait one or 2 days before you go on that social media platform. But listen, leave us your comments down below, leave your likes, and share this with somebody else, and subscribe to Dark Arts podcast as well. My name is Kojo, aka Little Black Book from my other channel, but Dark Arts in this one. And I'm also joined by Naomi as well. Naomi, where can they find you and some of your great work that you do as well?
You can find me on all socials at Naomi Bellu, and you can also listen to my content on my podcast at Pretty Problems, where we speak about these topics and more: urban culture, culture, all the good stuff, basically.
Thank you very much, Naomi. All right, audience. Appreciate you guys. Stay locked, stay loaded. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Stay in the good books. And Valentine's coming next year. You got another 364 days left till you get to that another day. Start saving up your coins now. You save £1 a day, you got £364 to spend on your girl. Think about that. All right. Much love and appreciation. We'll see you again next week for another enthralling conversation.